Okay, today we're going to continue on. This actually is our third training in the series of the parenting for First 5. And so, having said that, I know not everyone in this room has had the other previous 2 trainings, so we'll make sure that you do get on track with that. But today we are on the 3rd training, and I'm not sure if you guys actually received that agenda or if you know that in advance. But what we're covering today is we're talking about problem behaviors and overview of learning theories and effective discipline strategies. And again, the emphasis here is on parenting, okay? So that's what our focus has been. The first training, for those of you who had it, we did a child development review, okay? So if you haven't had it, that's what you can expect. We talked about some parenting styles that have been actually documented and researched and actually over time have kind of held true. So we talked about that in the first training. Our second training was more talking about attachment and mental health. So, and the importance of early attachment and what that means. So again, if you haven't received those, that's what you can expect. So for today, problem behavior defined, overview of learning theories and effective discipline strategies. Before we get started, today is going to be quite interactive, actually. At least that is my hope. So, problem behavior defined. What is problem behavior? So I'm going to throw that out to all of you. When we say problem behavior, what are we talking about? Who makes this determination? Yes?
Oh, who makes this determination?
Yeah, just kind of, that's a question in my mind.
A behavior that is non-functional, that interferes with your daily routine. I don't know. That's not a definition.
Okay, so let me think. So behavior that's non-functional, so you're saying it doesn't serve a purpose. Is that kind of what you're saying? And that interferes with your, as a parent, your daily routine?
And the child as well.
And the child as well.
Uh-huh.
Okay, anybody want to throw out some other thoughts about that? Just
It depends on the family situation, the culture that the family resides in. So if it's a problem for the outside culture, outside of your family, then it may be a behavior problem out there, but at home it may not be a behavior problem. So there may be a conflict there.
And I'm glad you mentioned the word cultural, because there's a big cultural component with this in terms of what is acceptable or not acceptable, what's seen as inappropriate versus appropriate. It's very culturally based. Anybody want to add anything else? What else would be a problem behavior? I mean, kind of just thinking about it.
A behavior that, causes physical harm to themselves or others.
Okay. Anybody want to disagree with that or add to it? Okay. And the reason I wanted to ask the question is because oftentimes, who's ever really in the role of authority, whether it be the parent, the caretaker, the teacher, the preschool teacher, the provider, in other words, they're sort of the ones that are determining what is appropriate and non-appropriate in establishing the parameters. So if I'm a teacher in a classroom and the child wants to get up and go get a glass of water, they cannot possibly, if I'm this type of teacher, cannot get up without raising their hand to let me know. And I may consider it a problem behavior if in fact they do not. So in any case, I'm establishing the rules in terms of what's problematic and what's not. However, as you alluded to, there's some behaviors that fall on a more significant side, more of the extreme, that could be a danger to themselves or others. And I think on the whole, you would get the majority of people agreeing that that's a problem behavior. So I just want to first establish this because I've had people come to me with behaviors that may necessarily be a problem for them per se, but not for people in a different context. So I just want to make sure that we get a handle on that. However, if the parent thinks it's a problem, you have the other parent thinks it's a problem, the teachers think it's a problem, okay, it seems inappropriate, It doesn't seem like it'll serve much function for them. If anything, it'll cause more difficulties for them, that kind of thing. So there's an agreement with people that are providing support for this child that this is a problem behavior. That's what we're going to be looking at today. Okay, but I want you to know there's nuances with that. So we tend to ask a lot more questions about it. Okay. Oh, actually, what I want to do now is I want to pass out these cards. I'd like you to take two each. And on the first card, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to tell me what is meant by discipline. What is meant by discipline? And on the back side of that same card, I'd like you to tell me what is meant by punishment. I'm always looking for a board to write on. That's one thing I don't have in here is a board. So on one side, I just want you to give me your thoughts on discipline when you hear that word. And think about all the related context that it's used. What does that mean to you? And then on the other side of the card, punishment. And Diana, your thoughts about discipline?
Yeah, it was hard for me to put it into words. To me, discipline could mean, and I'm just thinking when I was growing up, that I would have to do chores to be able to get privileges. So I think that could be a discipline. Is teaching me how to be accountable for my actions. So I think that's...
Okay, so teaching you how to be accountable for your actions. And chores was one
that
method of doing that.
Yeah, if I wanted to go out with my friends, I had to do chores at home, and they had to be finished before I consider even asking. So.
Okay. And Bilal, how about you for discipline? Any thoughts?
I thought the correction of bad or misbehaved,
Okay, correction. Okay.
more of correct, nice way, gentle encouragement.
Okay. Okay. And we're going to get into some of these details further. Okay.
Providing boundaries and guidance, setting limits.
Okay. So some of those words you've heard again with parenting and parenting techniques, boundaries, setting limits, guidance. Okay.
I put set boundaries for behavior,
Okay.
like doing your homework or not talking back to your parents or like that.
Okay.
I also put setting boundaries or limits and also defining what is the desired outcomes and interactions. So, like, what is the most preferred behavior in discipline?
Okay. And you said defining that, so kind of discussing that.
Yeah, what's the goal in mind and why
Okay.
we're doing certain things.
Okay. Alrighty.
Right. And then I was thinking it's a way to get a desired behavior, and in the beginning it comes from an outside source, like your parents are telling you to do things. Then later on you kind of internalize it and you start to discipline yourself.
Right. Okay. Very good.
Somewhere I put obedience, compliance, purpose of controlling and preventing any form of disruptive problematic behaviors, a logical, effective strategy for parenting.
Yeah. And it's not to say any of these are wrong. I just want to get a sense of people's thoughts about it, because oftentimes there's people that really sort of see them one and the same, and that may dictate their parenting style, perhaps. And there's some people that have very different ideas about that. So that's what I'm sort of getting at.
Okay, I got for discipline, a consequence that occurs after one has not followed a set of guidelines. And for punishment, I thought an extreme consequence when one has broken a law. I looked at discipline more as like children-based, and punishment was more as a lawbreaker.
Okay. And you were actually looking at it more globally,
Yeah.
you know, because sometimes we tend to focus in on just how it relates to us role-wise, maybe as a parent or, yeah. Okay. And Judith?
I said setting boundaries and establishing consequences if the boundaries are crossed.
Okay, and we did say that. Okay, then.
Similar, providing structure and boundaries for ways to behave and fair and appropriate consequences if they misbehave.
Okay.
I put correcting and correcting and teaching through guidance and role modeling to change behavior that is unwanted, or and also for the individual to take responsibility for their behavior.
Wow, you guys are really good. I'm thinking you guys are so good. You covered the majority of what we're going to cover today by all the language that you're using. You know, boundaries and consequence and structure, behavior. We're going to be covering learning theories, and you guys really have the language down, I tell you. So before I get into the slide I have on these two, we're going to come back here. Now I want to hear your thoughts on punishment.
I said you could be something that you do to stop a negative action or behavior. It doesn't have to be physical, like punishment, harm, but maybe taking away privileges for an unruly behavior.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so withdrawal of that. Okay, or loss.
Harsh way of correction when child misbehaving, spanking, yelling, screaming.
Okay.
Reacting in response to perceived bad behavior by doing some action.
Okay.
I put negative consequence for bad behavior.
I also have negative consequences that can be considered punitive and or negative reaction to behaviors.
Yeah, people agree with that. Okay.
Something was similar, just a negative action as a result of an undesired behavior, and it could be physical or just taking things away.
Mm-hmm.
A negative consequence as a result of a negative behavior, and it can cause a negative response on the individual who's being punished.
Mm-hmm.
In mine I shared already, I didn't know, an extreme consequence for one has broken the law.
Right, that's right, you covered yours.
I have negative connotation, and I think it's different than consequences. From a consequence, you learn something. The purpose is to learn. To me, a punishment is something that's belittling, demeaning to a child or a person with the intent of inflicting guilt or shame.
And I said an excessive use of discipline techniques such as more physical or emotional, and the consequences are more extreme than just basic structuring of behavior, misbehavior.
I put punitive action taken to discourage unwanted behavior, to provide consequences.
Okay. Right. And the reason I wanted to start with this is because I noticed that the majority of you put, negative consequence, punitive action, that kind of thing. And generally speaking in the field, that is sort of the take on punishment. I do want you to know, however, punishment is quite effective as a method of discipline. However, some of the things that Judith mentioned as far as belittling, and a few others mentioned the fact what it does to the child. It really is not the best method of discipline to use. There's other things that are more effective strategies to use. However, in terms of behavior change, yes, you can get behavior change with it. But again, if you want to have a particular relationship with your child, if you want to instill confidence and self-esteem, encourage them to be responsible and accountable, it's probably not the best way to go.